Finally, a video that's not about Final Fantasy. Hey guys, welcome back to the Lightning Cave. This is the Lockdown Chronicles. Obviously, I'm still not outdoors, but this time it's a full-on review, and I'm reviewing the Switch port of Indivisible. Salmon reviewed Indivisible back in October, and I believe he gave it a 9 out of 10. Since then, it's just very recently been released on Switch. Now, the Switch port was actually released apparently as a surprise to the devs, because the team handling the Switch release or port were a different dev team who'd done the original game. And apparently they used an older version of the game. So there's certain features that aren't available, such as co-op and New Game Plus. So does any of this affect the release of Switch? Now, I'm obviously going to review the game as a whole anyway, because I don't know, I never played the PC version. For me, it didn't. I don't think this game really works amazingly well as a co-op. I think it's a fantastic single-player game, and I haven't completed it yet, and I probably wouldn't play New Game Plus. So for me, it doesn't affect it, and overall, it's a really great game. It's a game which finds its own little niche in between RPG and indie, and combines platforming and turn-based combat in a way which makes you want to keep going back for more. So put it this way, since I turned it on about a week ago now, I haven't played anything else on Switch, and I've barely touched the PS4, only to try and finish Final Fantasy. So what did I know about this game before going in? I played a demo EGX, and I wasn't blown away, but I think that's simply because the demo was quite far into the game. I'm pretty far in, and I think the demo was somewhere where I haven't even been yet in my playthrough. So I think the problem was they threw you in without much explanation. You need a good understanding of the combat system and how their unique turn-based mechanics work to enjoy it. And I had a completely fresh approach to the storyline as well. So I didn't even read Sam's review because it was a game that intrigued me and I wanted to play, and I'm very glad to have been given the opportunity to review it. So the storyline, it starts off very kind of typical RPG, JRPG, which is your village is burnt down, you're a person of power, you've got some sort of weird backstory you don't know about, and the kingdom is evil and you need to go defeat them. And I was like, oh great, here we go again. Just like many other, like a Zelda or a Dragon Quest or whatever, they've all done it. They've all had these storylines. But very quickly it changed because your main character, Anya, Ajna, I won't say that name again, Ajna. She's kind of like South American, which is quite cool, quite different again. Kind of reminds me of Dora the Explorer, weirdly. So I like that it wasn't, or it was completely, the art style was very unique. It's very cartoony, but in a good way. It's not classic anime sort of style, as we're all used to. It's got its own unique look. It reminds me of like kind of Cartoon Network cartoons, the good ones, like
Few moments later.
something Steven Universe, is it? That sort of thing, which I thought was really cool, and it works really well throughout the game. And obviously her being a kind of South American character gave it a bit different spin. And this might be because the game was actually made in the States, not in Japan. So it's not a JRPG, it's a turn-based RPG. The storyline, you basically, very early on, your father, who's been training you for combat for years for no apparent reason, he gets killed by the kingdom. That's not a spoiler, it happens in the first 10 minutes of the game. The kingdom burned down your village, and then you've got to go back and defeat them. Now, what's very different is the guy that killed your father, you fight him, and then when you've beaten him, it's a classic like, oh yes, you haven't actually beaten me, I'm not dead. And then you absorb him into your head. And then inside Anya's, or Ajna, the main character's head, is a pocket dimension where she stores all of the combatants that all of your party members that you're going to use. And I thought it was really cool. It was a really good kind of weird twist. And like the more, I don't want to give anything away because I'm about, I don't know, probably maybe 10 hours in, and I'm still learning new things about the story and why there's a pocket dimension inside her head, and what her origins are and all this sort of stuff, and where her powers come from. But it makes you want to keep going because you want to find out why. I like that had that twist like quite early on, kept me interested. So obviously when you go into combat, and then your little party members pop out your head, weird, and then you fight. You can go into the pocket dimension whenever you want and talk to people. That aren't only combatants; there are also people there who help you level up. But I'll talk more about that later. I want to talk firstly more about. I want to talk more about the story because it's a game you want to play for the story. You said you've got a pocket dimension. There's a weird history of your power. You need to go defeat the kingdom because they burnt your village down and you don't know anything else. So you just play it to find out what's happened. But that is all I should say. Like I said, the game is made up of two core mechanics: platforming and turn-based combat. Now, for me, the platforming was a welcome element in a turn-based RPG because many of them I've played before. As much as they're fun and they focus heavily on the combat or the leveling system, or whatever, the level exploration itself can be pretty boring. There's not much to do, especially in 2D games. I find that it can be pretty simple. You're just walking around talking to people, hoping to get to the next stage. Now, this often is balanced with a great combat system or a card game or mini games or something like that. But this has great platforming. It is really good. You are given items as you go along by the people that you absorb into your head, such as axes and bows and spears, and those help you to explore the world more. You've obviously got standard things such as wall jumping, and for example, very early on, you get a bow and arrow. So there's like a high up ledge you can't reach. You shoot a bow and arrow at a broken wall. It sends out this kind of gust of wind, which enables you to jump higher. It's that sort of platforming which we've all played before. But it's as fun as the combat, and which is it's really great because for example, something like Mario, it's just platforming and jumping on people's heads. You're not, old school 2D Mario. You're not, you don't get this other side of it, which is the combat. So I really enjoyed unlocking more weapons and items and being given the ability to explore more of the world you're in. And the more you're exploring, the more you're rewarded because you pick up these power crystals, which you can use to level up your overall power, which is like a bar at the top, which I'll talk about in a sec. And you're also collecting these herbs, which can up your health. That is pretty much the leveling system, though. So that, I will say that. Then reflect. Bloody hell, I can't think of the words. Rewind. And then to couple that, you've got this amazing combat system. Each character is assigned a button, and that button, there's little circles underneath their health bar, and as you upgrade the entire party, you have like 1, then 2, then 3 attack buttons, maybe 4. I'm only on 3 at the moment. And the idea is to combo attacks between the whole party to take on the enemies. There's no order of attack. The enemies will attack you at random, but you need to try and attack them first and take down their health before they take down yours, obviously. What makes it different is that you're continuously going. There's no stopping. There's no searching for items because you're healing from your party members only. You have to combine the directional buttons with the attack button to perform different attacks. And the idea is the more you mix it up, the quicker you build up your overall power bar. And also you do need to mix it up to break blocks and defenses and things like that, and also just to attack different enemies. There's many variations of enemies. There's loads. There's aerial enemies, so you need to use bow and arrows or high attacks. There's big blocking enemies. There's little enemies which cause really high damage. You just don't get bored of it, and every fight it feels like quite different. Every few battles you're fighting a different enemy. It's not like the same thing over and over and over again. So you have to combine all of these elements to build up your attack bar, because the more you change it up, the more you combo, the faster you build that up at the top. And essentially when that builds up, which would be like here or here, when you build up that attack bar, you unleash your kind of ultimate move or like a team heal. So the idea is to combo between your 4 party members, or maybe one's more of a healer, but they can attack as well. And then you build up your attack bar and you finish off with your kind of super attack and keep doing that and blocking. Now, if you block, and especially if you team block, which you can do by pressing L instead of their own individual button. By the way, their own individual button becomes block when they attack, but that's never really explained. So I did find that frustrating. I was, it tells you to team block with L, but then you work out if you hold down or if you press the person's block button at the right time, you basically parry or block the person attacking you. When you block, it uses up the bar at the top. So the idea is block as little as possible, parry to actually build it up, to then build your bar. Don't team block because it basically depletes your whole bar. You're forced to think about what you're doing and use all of these buttons and mechanics and different party members and mixing it up to take down the enemies. There's been plenty of times where I haven't been able to take down an enemy because I've just done it wrong. Or I've decided to take the healer out of my party and got decimated. Like, you do need healers, you do need the right party members, you need to work out which ones are quick, which ones are powerful, which ones attacks work better against certain enemies. So you might want to whittle them down with the main character, but then use someone else who's got a more powerful special attack to knock their health down massively. So that's general combat. Then boss fights combine both the platforming and the combat, which is really cool. If you mess up the platforming during the boss battle, so you'll basically get down like a third of their health. Platform, if you mess up the platform completely and get hit by their attacks that are in the air, your health is going to be nothing going into the next part of the boss fight, and you'll get decimated because you won't have time to build up the bar or the attacks to heal yourself. I actually found this really challenging, the first few boss fights, because you have to think about it. And I do think it's added in because if you didn't have that, you could almost constantly heal and fight without much of a challenge if you're good enough. So I think having the platforming adds a big bit of challenge, and then it also gives you a sense of achievement, because if you're on a third part of the boss fight and you mess up platforming and die, it doesn't go back to the beginning of that. You go back to the beginning of the whole boss fight, which can be frustrating, but it gives it an element of challenge, which I enjoyed. So that is pretty much the game. You've got awesome platforming, awesome combat, which combine for the boss fights, and then you've got this world. So I really enjoy it. I like the story, the combat, and the platforming. Is there anything I didn't like? Yes, there is. I've mentioned a couple of times about the mechanics. Quite often, it wasn't a problem or an issue with me not playing the game well. It was because I hadn't been told how to play the game correctly. And I think there's a huge difference. And there isn't enough tutorials on some parts. There's lots of the platforming, but sometimes the combat. I know you're meant to play it and explore it and work out the best way of defeating enemies, but I think sometimes they could have given you a bit more advice on certain enemies. There's still gun enemies I struggle with blocking because you have to be so precise with the block, but it took me ages to work out not to use team block, use the individual block, etc., and just try and heal up as much as possible when attacking. And obviously you want challenge enemies, but I feel personally that they need to give you a bit more advice on certain parts, because it wasn't a matter of playing badly, it was not knowing how to play properly. Also, quite often you get to like a big town and talking to lots of people is just pointless. You will occasionally find someone who can jump as well into your mind, there's not even really side missions, or I haven't encountered any, or I've spoken to the wrong people, but I got bored of talking to people who had nothing to offer to the story or the combat or anything, I think that could have been better. And finally, I've touched on the leveling up, but like I said, the collecting the crystals and these herbs is the only way to level up. There is no leveling system or customization. You earn XP as you battle, and you get a kind of overall advancement on your stats. But I personally would have liked some sort of choice, because each character's got different ratings on whether they're better at attack or speed or whatever. It would have been cool to have been able to play with that to level up. Maybe you have to level up a fair amount before doing that, but there wasn't a lot of customization, and I think that they could have put something simple in just to add an extra level of depth. Now, I appreciate you've got the platforming with the combat, which other games don't, so it feels like a trade-off, and it's not the end of the world at all. Despite these few negative points, I really like the game. I'm going to play it until I complete it. I'm probably not going to play anything else on the Switch until I have done. So for me, Indivisible on Switch gets 8.5. So thank you as always for watching. Please like the video, subscribe, let us know if you do or don't like it. Head over to the website. I'm also going to have a written version of this review, so you can go read it if you want. Check out all of our news, all the other reviews, all the other videos. Follow us on social media. Just search for Respond UK or go to www.responding.co.uk. Thanks very much.